And away we go on this latest edition of the National Racing Report from Aqueduct Racetrack, nestled into South Ozone Park, Queens, our home over the next 5 months or so. Glad you're with us here on MSG Plus. Jason Blewitt, Andy Serling, Richard Migliore. We've got the three-way pace battle as we launch from the starting gate. And look, a terrific Cigar Mile day. Holiday Fest was great. And I've been waiting to get Dortmund back on the show, considering he's part of that opening package, and he has been there over the last few months.
And he's a horse that could certainly be a force in next year's races. And what was so nice about yesterday's races is it was a great conclusion to a great year in racing, because we had exceptional races all day long.
We really did, and so many times you go into a day with a lot of anticipation. Well, this is a day that I think really delivered.
And we dive right in. 15 races on this show. We kid you not. We'll cover as much ground as we possibly can over the next 30 minutes or so. And let's get into the action. The Grade 1 $500,000 Cigar Mile, and this capped the Grade 1 action on this circuit for 2015, a year that produced racing's first Triple Crown winner since 1978. And, Mig, I'll send it to you out of the gate with the big favorite, Private Zone, who was looking for a Cigar Mile repeat. It was not to be, as he was pretty ranked and just didn't seem like he was happy at all.
Well, he was ranked because Martin Pedrosa was trying to keep him back with horses. And, you know, I know he's going to catch a lot of heat because people say, why didn't you just let him run? Well, this is a horse that early in his life, Andy, was very quirky. And I actually went back and watched all his races from Panama, where he actually propped in races, where he wheeled in a race. And I think after the work the other day when Martin flew into Palm Meadows and worked him, and he propped not once but twice when he tried, he worked basically a quarter and propped, worked another quarter and propped. He was worried that being out by himself, this horse might do something funny. And it's a very tough position to be in, because if you let him open up and he does wheel or turn around, now you're the guy going down in front of 5 other horses.
Yeah, and the people who think he should have just let him roll and go 2 seconds faster and open up 15 lengths, if those people actually rationally believe he would have won the race doing that, then they're not really thinking it through. And as you know, nobody's a bigger critic than I am of riders who are over-aggressively restraining their mounts. I don't believe that was the case here, and I think to jump to that conclusion is really a mistake, because things are rarely as obvious as they seem. He wasn't going to win. The other thing is, Richie, as you point out so many times, the horse who likes a fight, he had no response. So if he was keeping all his energy in while going slower, wouldn't he if he had a little more fight in here?
Yeah, he folded up pretty readily. And, you know, you think about this. They changed trainers. Brian Lynch, terrific trainer. He doesn't know the horse. So he can't even make the assessment when he works like that to say, you know what, I'm going to just, you know, pass on this race. Now, let's get back to what really happened here. How about Toneless? I wouldn't have given you 10 cents on the dollar at the 3/8 pole, and he found another gear.
As anyone who's in the film theater knows, I declared that he would be last on the backstretch, and Todd was teasing me on the way out of the room with a good call, because it looked like he had absolutely no horse in there. Some other questions, and maybe we can watch a pan of the stretch run after we look at this head-on. I want to talk about the backstretch and get more into that. I think he's having an issue with this horse, Richie, whether it's propping, whatever it is, and I'm sure you're more at the bottom than anybody. I just think, once again, buying it, and I watched a lot of his races over the last year or two and all his Cigar Miles. Yep. He always kept him a bit out in the racetrack, so I don't know that that was that different, but he was out more than he normally is.
Yeah, and that could be a couple of reasons. The fact that he broke from the outside. I also think that Martin was begging someone to go up inside of him and lead him, give him company, and then let him join in, because he was worried about that. I know some people think he was getting out, and his head was cocked towards the inside. I don't think he was getting out. I think Martin was just very aware of trying to let somebody inside of him and then try to bring them close to him so he had company.
And no one took the bait, though, and he still wound up on an uncontested lead.
Well, Red Vine did kind of go onto the inside, and that ended up hurting him. And you could see in the backstretch, it was possible that would not be a good move for Joel. I don't know what else Joel could do, though, because it's not like they could go around him. There's people who think Red Vine was best because he couldn't get through on the inside, he had to alter course, and I get that argument, but I still think, considering the slow pace and the dynamics of the race, the best horse won.
I agree with you. The best horse won. Red Vine was unlucky, and maybe if he gets through, he put enough separation where Toneless couldn't have caught him. It didn't happen. I still think Toneless was best, because off of that slow pace, going the wrong direction when the race was starting to heat up, and when he got in the clear. Now, you think about it, though. We've often said that he runs better at Belmont.
Nonsense.
Well, I think he does for this reason, that he runs turns better. at Belmont
Okay.
than here.
Okay.
And I just don't think he ran the turn well yesterday.
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. I just don't like the argument that he can only run well at Belmont.
I don't think
that
that's
I hate.
true.
And when people then say he runs well in Saratoga, and then he runs well at Aqueduct, he also ran very well at Gulfstream.
At Gulfstream as a
allowance race
3-year-old,
also.
yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a very good point about running the turns well, but I don't like, and you're not saying this, to diminish him and say he's just a New York horse suddenly. That's nonsense.
No, and I didn't mean that by any means. I just don't think he runs these tighter turns as well, as handy.
That's fair.
So they get away from him a little bit, and then he keeps coming. Boy, when he got in his right lead, I've always thought of him a little more as a grinder.
Me too.
Couldn't have been more wrong yesterday.
Oh, really punched it into high gear. John Velasquez, his second career win in the Cigar Mile for Christophe Clement, an exacta sweep, and his first ever Cigar Mile win with the horse who now has a Cigar Mile, Peter Pan, Westchester, Belmont, and 2 Gold Cups to his credit on this circuit.
No, he's going to be a terrific stud, but he's going to be racing next year, which is even more exciting. And I think that was Christophe Clement's 100th win of this year, and the first time he's actually done that.
You're right,
Nice
Christophe.
to get 100, and what a nice resume he's built.
No kidding. I think a future Hall of Famer for sure. Now let's move on to Jimmy Jerkins, and it may not yield, and it won't yield an Eclipse Award, the job Jimmy has done with FNX over the last year and change, but this is one of the greatest training jobs I can remember in recent times.
Somewhere the chief was smiling when FNX got this done, and I agree. You know, I'm reading people talking about Mike Smith and riding the Breeders' Cup. Mike gave him a great ride in the Breeders' Cup, and he rode him well here. The story of this horse, though, is Jimmy Jerkins.
Absolutely. Jimmy has just, basically, you've seen this horse blossom under Jimmy. And a horse that's always shown ability, but I think he's really put it together now, obviously. And how many times have we seen this, though? A horse gets trounced by American Pharaoh, comes back and wins.
Yeah, well, he ran against a lot of horses, and when they came in other races, they were successful, and it does show how good he was. On the other hand, Keen Ice, who finished 4th, beat him in Saratoga. But I agree with you overall. Opportunity's a nice, hard trier. FNX was better than him. I do want to ask you, Richie, what you thought of Keen Ice's performance, because he did put in a significant run. I do know he also lost a photo for 3rd to a big long shot.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought he kind of made a run and idled a little bit someplace in the middle there, and I'm not quite sure what that was about. Do you think, even though, with his style, because right here I thought he kind of flattened out, and then he got running again later. This horse might be better with blinkers.
That's something you're much, much better than I am, and that's certainly a possibility, and certainly going to ask Dale Romans when I see him about that. I feel like Keen Ice is a somewhat unfairly maligned horse. I don't think there's ever been a single person that has rationally said that he's some sort of superstar. But he's a pretty darn good horse. Yeah. And with his running style, assuming he runs next year throughout the year, Dale Romans likes to dance the dances. Isn't he going to get the right pace and win a big race somewhere along the line?
And when he shows up with his A game, he's eligible, as the Travers showed. And I know he got a bit lucky with the pace and stuff, but when he shows up and gets things his own way, he can probably beat just about any horse in training.
Yeah, I think he's certainly in the picture. And a year ago, he ran our Remsen, and he was a complete non-factor. Why couldn't he get a little better next year?
Well, I think he's the kind of horse that has the look of a horse that's going to continue to improve and be better at 4. But he is a little pace dependent, and he, if he gets the pace, though, we saw what he can do.
But back to FNX, he's got to be the New York bred horse of the year. And here we saw a lot of good New York breds.
Yeah, no kidding. And I'll tell you, Jimmy Jerkins getting a nice Grade 2 win in Kentucky. Good stuff
Grade
there
1.
with the state bred. Thank you very much. A Grade 1 winner's share of $500,000. Now, the chart shows a non-Grade 1 for our next race, but this was a Grade 1 caliber performance from a horse in Dortmund who, there was a time when I thought this was Bob Baffert's best 3-year-old. It wasn't that long ago.
He was intending to ship him to Clark. He said he had some foot issues and wanted to not ship him and give him another day. Whatever the reasoning, it certainly worked out here. This was an inferior field, but Richie, you talk about Keen Ice. This horse is the goods, and I'm not sure right now he isn't the early favorite for top handicap horse next year.
He was so impressive, and he's just such a big, imposing horse. He reminds me so much of Point Given. Now, I know he's got a long ways to go to get to his category, but I think he's a really good horse. And Gary Stevens, unfortunately, flew cross-country here, took ill, was unable to ride Taris, flew back, felt better on Sunday, and added to his Hall of Fame resume.
And Point Given was the first words that came out of his mouth when dismounting Dortmund yesterday. Well, just in the fact that I know you're chuckling because he likes to.
He's ridden a lot of the best horses he's ever ridden.
Yes, he has. This might just be your horse better than Beholder now. But anyway, just talking about his size and scope, it reminded him of Point Given. And I'll tell you, I'm already salivating over the Malibu on opening day because Dortmund's scheduled to run against Run Happy, and you've got Marking and potentially Watershed for Godolphin.
No, I agree. I'm already excited about that, and that's horse racing. Always something to look forward to.
Yeah, Christmas present.
Yeah, I like that. Bob Baffert, another graded stakes win. We have got a lot more to talk about on the Racing Report. Back to Churchill Downs, the Fall Highway, and a big segment of two-year-olds to wrap up the show. We're back on the National Racing Report. The MIG, Andy and Jason from the Big A. Let's get you back out to the action at Del Mar. We just saw Dortmund's tour de force against a subpar field in the native diver. This was a big field on the turf, three-year-olds in the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby.
That's a very exciting race and an excellent ride here by Corey Nakatani and chiropractor to get it done. Chad Brown sent 4 horses out there. He finished 2nd, 4th, and 5th. Didn't get the money. Did pretty well. I didn't think Ohm had any major excuse here. I don't think they were flying up front, Richie.
They weren't flying. I think it would have been probably better for him if he was able to keep that long shot in front of him a little bit longer, because horses tend to blow by that leader and maybe get a little bit lost. But he ran well, and there was a horse that was laying not too far off of him that was only beaten about a length and a half to him. Although we talk about it, usually turf racing, a length and a half can translate to a bit more. I think the ride made all the difference here. Chiropractor just got that Corey Nakatani when he's on his game kind of ride. March and him rallied together. March was a little wider, and Chiropractor got it done.
I think it was simply a case of him saving more ground than March in that situation, because, as you say, they just moved together, and March couldn't get by him. I bet March, he had his chance. He just was second best in this situation. Fundamental to finish 4th. Had a little bit of traffic in the stretch. He could have been closer. Not 100% sure of that. And I think the other thing with Chiropractor, he got into a more competitive spot. Ohm wasn't allowed to just absolutely dictate the race like he did last time.
No, well, absolutely. But, you know, if we think about it, for a 14-horse field, pretty cleanly run race.
I agree. And these are nice horses, I tell you.
Yeah.
The turf horses put in a good show, and it's been a nice group of 3-year-old turf horses.
It has. Parity, I think, has ruled that division for the most part, at least with the males, and Tom Proctor, the winning trainer, that gelding by Kitten's Joy. Let's move on to the Big A action on Friday afternoon. The Go for Juan. The MIG noticed mentioned a couple of moments ago, Gary Stevens fell ill Friday afternoon after winding up in New York, and that gave Joel Rosario the green light on the big odds-on favorite, Taurus.
Well, nobody criticized Joel Rosario for rating a horse who could have been the loose speed Taurus here, and it ended up working out just fine for her. So when it works out, it's a good ride. When it doesn't work out, it's a bad ride.
You know, that's a jockey's lot in life. If you win, it was terrific. If you lose, what did the guy do? But I thought the key to this, though, was when he got Taurus to settle. When she pulled for about an 1/8 mile, and then she settled. And she had a lot left when Mei Ling made a run outside. Joel kind of went out and met her, and then he went on. And that's what's race riding, not when you come out and bump one, when you just got to meet the challenge.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wasn't overly impressed with the race. She got a 93 buyer. I really like Taurus. I think she's a good horse. You know, she ran that huge race at Keeneland last year, so I think a lot of us set the bar too high for her. It almost feels like that race has been an aberration. She's a talented horse, but she's not a super horse.
Well, don't you think she was unlucky in the Breeders' Cup there?
I do think she was unlucky. She wasn't going to beat Chad's horse. Chad's horse was much the best.
Well,
but absolutely, if she had been more aggressive towards the front end, I think she would have been second in that race. It could have been a different race. I just feel like we saw that race at Keeneland last year, and I thought, oh my, this horse could be a super horse.
Yeah,
and she's never run back to that race.
Good placement by trainer Simon Callahan, shipping her east and getting as an odds-on favorite the winner's share of $300K. Another graded stakes victory on the resume for Taurus, who's owned by Coolmore. As we get it back to the action at Churchill Downs, we'll have our good buddy, their race caller, Travis Stone, with us all winter here at Aqueduct, backing up Johnny I. And here is the Falls City run on Thanksgiving. We'll pick it up at the quarter pole.
Yeah, I mean, these are horses that actually had finished in the wake, or at least the winner had finished in the wake of the third-place finisher in the Go for Juan. So it certainly flatters that race, and you have to say, in a way, it flatters Taurus. But you know what? Neil Howard's done a nice job with Oz Chocolate, and I know it makes everyone happy to see Neil win a big one.
Yeah, for me, that's the story out of the race. Neil Howard. You know, he's a guy that's such a good trainer. It's been a little bit quiet for him the last couple of years, but he is an old-school horseman, a horseman's horseman.
Absolutely, and a terrific guy as well.
Yeah, one of the good guys, hands down. Let's move on to the Big A here, as we have 3-year-old fillies in the Cumley. We looked at the 3-year-old turf horses out at Del Mar. This finished just as good as 2 fillies pulled away from the field, and Carumba, the gray and the red cap, and knew her outside. That was forever unbridled with Johnny V.
It may not have had the names of some of the other races, but I'm not sure, Richie, this wasn't the race of the weekend.
This was a terrific race. And you know, to me, this was like the young gun and the old pro here. Johnny Velasquez was so cool on the outside, and I spoke to him after the race. He said he didn't want to get to Carumba or go all in with Carumba too early because he knows Carumba likes to fight. Boy, she did fight, almost came back and got him.
I like the winner. I did not like Carumba at all in this race, and I was dead wrong about her. She ran a sensational race, and they were 7.5 lengths ahead of Wonder Gal, who's a very, very nice horse, and ran just 6/100 slower than an extremely good Remsen. These are terrific 3-year-old fillies that are both improving, both relatively lightly raced. And when you think ex-Beholder, and you think about that division of older fillies and mares next year, why can't these two be major players, Richie?
Oh, they should be, and I think they're the horses that are improving towards the end of the year that point them out going to their 4-year-old season.
I agree, and we talked about a good guy with Neil Howard. Well, good guy with Dallas Stewart, Jason.
Who won the Ballerina on the Travers undercard with this one's full older sister in Unbridled Forever. And Charles Fipke has got one good mare in that Kentucky Oaks winner, that is, Lemons Forever. Let's move on to our next race. It is the River City from Churchill Downs. They ran a couple of stakes on their Thanksgiving Day program. The Fall City is in the rearview mirror, and here is the action as they round the far turn and thunder off the quarter pole on the turf.
Speaking of letting horses do what they do well, that's what the rider, Julian Leparoux, did here with Heart to Heart. Put this horse on the lead for trainer Brian Lynch, never looked back. Messy, a big disappointment.
Big disappointment there, but when I see Julian Leparoux on the lead, I just automatically think they're going to be tough to beat because if he's there, they're just going that easy.
Richie's only saying that because he knows that happens again on this show. No, but I agree with you. And, listen, once again, Julian's a rider that I always feel like I'm defending Julian. And I do think he sometimes over-restrains horses, but overall, he's a little bit of the bettor's whipping boy. He's a lot better rider than a lot of people suggest.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that they've fallen into that because he seems to excel when he's in Kentucky and struggle a little bit in Saratoga for the summer. He struggled a bit in California where you have to be more aggressive, and it's just doesn't come natural to him. But when I see him in front, because I don't think it's his total comfort zone.
No, it's not.
I just think that he's got that much horse under him.
And he does not get in this horse's way, and the second choice to Messi. Messi's a better horse than that. I'll chalk it up to not liking the turf.
Yeah,
horse.
maybe he gets his one little mulligan. He's a better horse. His body will work pretty good in the Big Apple this year for trainer H. Graham Motion. A lot of history going back and a very impressive list of past winners in Thanksgiving Day's 102nd running of the Fall Highway. I don't know if a New Jersey bred has ever won this race. Here is the speedy and likable Green Grotto, who just shows up every 2 weeks and runs hard, but also took advantage of an inside that was very kind of horses that were pulling a rail trip.
Yeah, listen, if any horse deserved to get a little lucky and win a big race, it was Green Grotto, who fights it out week after week after week and has had a sensational year in his connection. Done a great job. But also, the other speed in here, Fabulous Kid, didn't break very well, and he got involved with Pullin' G's in this race and steadied him back early, and Pullin' G's was inside here. I understand why Junior Alvarado, not Junior Alvarado, I'm sorry. This was Manny Franklin, took him off the rail because the 2 was going nowhere in front of him, but it turns out it kind of hurt him because he was wide against the track.
Yeah, he was wide against the track, and you think about Palace rallying towards the inside, it made a big difference in their trips, and he was beaten less than a length, Pulling G's. But the story to me, Green Grotto, you love this horse. This is the heart and soul of our industry. And Kendrick Carmouche, well, this is why he's having the success he's having. He let him run. He went on. He was aggressive. And he said before the race, I tried kind of saving him last time. It didn't work out. I'm going to let him bounce.
Yeah, I agree. He's the one who did things well. Now, Salutos Amigos was also victimized by being 3, 4, 5 wide throughout the running of the race, and he still ran well to be second. La Verdad, this might be her last career start. We'll see if that turns out to be the case. This was a tough spot from a dynamic standpoint, but rating when you're against the kind of fillies she beat in the Iroquois is a lot different than trying to rate against these horses. And I think this is one where if they looked at the speed figures and thought about it, they would have said she finished first, but it wasn't a fast race. She's going to need to run faster to run this race. We need to be more aggressive with her, and I thought it did not benefit her rating her so strongly.
No, and particularly with the way the track was playing. So now you're rating, off the rail, and let's be honest, she's probably a tired filly. I mean, run back in a week, the Breeders' Cup, the shipping around. It has to catch up with the horse at some stage.
And a tough spot when it comes down to it, because if they do send, she's the one that's most likely vying outside Green Grotto. Maybe she cost him the race. But regardless, we talked about Jimmy Jerkins and his New York bred FNX. Let's give Linda Rice a little acknowledgement with the job she has done with both Palace and La Verdad.
Oh, I mean, that's it's in the record books. It doesn't matter what happened in the Fall Highway. Yeah. An amazing claim with one of them, an amazing training job with both of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, best of luck to Palace at Spendthrift Farm, and it's Kentucky Derby Dreaming as our final segment approaches, all about the 2-year-olds, including a very strong rendition of the Remsen. We are rolling down the stretch on the National Racing Report. 2-year-olds, it's time. They've got the final segment all to themselves. It's the Mig, Andy, and Jason, and let's send it to the last 3/8 or so of Saturday's Remsen, which was highly anticipated and lived up to the billing, for sure.
No, it really did. These are sensational 2-year-olds, and with all due respect to the deserving champion, Nyquist, who got an 89 buyer for winning the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. The winner got a 94, and the first 3 finishers, Richie, are all majorly on the Triple Crown Trail.
Yeah, I like all of these horses, and even going back to the 4th-place finisher, who I don't think ran his best race, Sail Ahoy. But I like that Mohaymen has run 3 times, Andy, and 3 different set of circumstances. He won on the lead, he won kind of making a long, sustained run, and now bottled up in behind horses, taking kickback, splits horses, and I think he's gotten as much seasoning out of 3 starts as any horse could possibly get.
No, I think those are very good points, Richie. I mean, you get what you want. These are building blocks. You want to win them. If you don't win them, you want to get something out of them, and he got something out of every race. Wins at 6, wins at a mile, wins at a mile and 1/8. Flexibility was second to him in these 2 races. He won at 6.5, second at a mile, second at a mile and 1/8. Gift box. He's more of a work in progress, just his 3rd career start. He didn't run as well as the others, but he's a horse that could move forward as well.
Well, it's just like you say, a work in progress. These are young horses that are going to continue to change and develop, and what you see today isn't necessarily what you're going to see 2 months from now. And Chad's horses, like Shug McGaughey's horses, like a lot of these top trainers, their horses improve.
And it's interesting to say that this year, as of now, Todd Pletcher doesn't have any 2-year-old colts whatsoever. So he, who has dominated the Triple Crown Trail over the last decade plus, Chad Brown finishes 2nd, 3rd in this race. Things could be a little bit different on that landscape for this year's Triple Crown run.
Could we be seeing a turn here?
Maybe just a down year for Todd. I wouldn't write Todd off just yet.
I wouldn't.
I know you're not.
We're happy to see Kieran McLaughlin, though, of a major Kentucky Derby hopeful in Mohaymen, and you felt maybe, just maybe, in a perfect world, Kieran was owed to Remsen after some tough beats with Cairo Prince and Frosted in the last 2 runnings. Let's move on to the boys out at Churchill Downs. What a mess this track was as they thunder off the far turn in Saturday's Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes. Aero Force for Mark Casse took to the slop.
Well, he can't win in the dirt in New York, but he can certainly do it in Kentucky. I think he won the prior race as well. But a sloppy track, Richie, answers so few questions.
Yeah, you really don't know what to make of it. And I think this is when people get the idea, Andy, that the Churchill Downs dirt course is kind to turf horses because it's sealed so tight. They just run over the top of it and they don't get down into it. I think this was a nice performance, but what does it tell you?
It is a turf horse, and now they'll think they'll have Derby dreams, and we'll see. Hopefully we'll see him on a dirt track. I hope he does well for the connections. Like the performance of the 2nd finisher for Bob Baffert, a horse who was right on the pace the whole way and far and away the best performer of the horses that were up front early. We'll see more from that horse out in California.
And his name, More Spirit, son of Escandrea. Let's move on to the action here at the Big A. In fact, got a couple more races to show you from Queens, beginning with the 2-year-old fillies and the Demoiselle, in which Chad Brown won this race for the first time, and he now sits with 32 graded stakes wins in 2015.
He's had an amazing year, and the only reason he probably won't be trainer of the year is because of American Pharaoh, and deservedly so for Bob Baffert. You know what? It's a $300,000 purse, but it took her almost 2 3/4 seconds longer than it took the boys in the Remsen. She's drifted a little, though, late, Richie.
Yeah, I think she just lost her focus when she hit the front. She saw the tire track. She jumped back to her left lead. She's a nice filly, but I think when the conversation comes up for who's the best 2-year-old fillies, it's a long way back to her.
It's a top-heavy division. You've got Songbird, you've got Rachel's Valentina, and you've got the rest. She's one of the rest, but she's going to have to improve, but she's lightly raced.
She's lightly raced, and she's trained by a guy who is just a master, a ex-Bobby Frankel protege who's really become a titan in the game. And for Erod Ortiz, I think this was his 22nd graded stakes win on the year. They have proved this is just a match made in heaven with these two.
They certainly had a lot of success together.
Yeah, a lot of confidence in each other, and you can see it.
And we have confidence in Hall of Fame trainer Bill Modern. It's been a good racing report this week for Julien Leparoux as we finish off the action out at Churchill Downs. Again, that wet track in the Goldenrod Stakes, and a good-looking Malibu Moon filly named Karina Mia. Ran a couple times at Keeneland and was a fast maiden winner in Lexington.
And this was a race where Julien was very aggressive because he had to be stacked up 4 wide in the first turn to make the lead. He used her hard to get the lead. I thought she ran off a little on him, but she was able to hold off the actual favorite stage play. These horses, you got to say, sloppy track or not, this was a more impressive race to me than the Demoiselle.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think stage play threw a big punch at Karina Mia, and she just shook it off and went on about her business. First time stretching out like that, a filly that has an abundance of speed, but she has a pedigree that says she can go on.
You guys remember King Swan?
Just a little bit.
Just a little for the
You
Mig,
wrote
and
him,
just a
didn't you?
little.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, quite a bit. 10-year-old retirement ceremony for King Swan right here at Aqueduct, of course, a local
greatest.
horse. Dick Dutrow Sr., and here comes a wicked pace that has taken its toll on the gray, Spooked Out, and the horse to his inside, Mo for the Money. Neon Green Silks with Jan's Reserve.
Well, I had bet sail away and thought I was ginger ale sitting behind those two jewelers. Came up the inside, which was a little bit heavier than the outside. It didn't matter. Jan's Reserve trying the dirt for the first time since a sloppy off-the-turf race. Pace or not, this was a fast race.
Yeah, and very, very impressive. The way this horse ran through the wire. Now, obviously, you got the setup. Boy, you don't normally see duels as intense as the one we saw between Mo for the Money and Spooked Out, and a lot of body contact, getting carried out. And I just think it was like they thought it was a match race, maybe.
Well, it was a match race down the backstretch, but not a match race the rest of the way.
Michael Dilger, winning trainer, and here's a stake, the inaugural running of the Furlough, a former Phipps homebred, won a few graded stakes on this circuit, and this is a good Bellamy Road filly in Constellation, who quite simply just had this field at her mercy.
And she's also got a nice look. You can see, if you see her with those dots all over, why they call her Constellation. It was a public workout, but she is okay.
I like the fact that she finally got in a position to have the opportunity to sit off a horse. She's not speed crazy, she's just fast.
And she also did this on a racetrack that was very kind inside speed. And it's not like she had a tough trip, but she wasn't gliding along a gold rail.
Mm-hmm. She's trained by Steve Asmussen, and we have seen literally Ellen-J. Foxwoods, the winning owner, spend millions, and they're getting some bang for their buck. They've got Nickname, a winner of the Grade 1 Frizette. They've got that Super Majesty, who's trained by Jerry Hollendorfer, and they've got one in Constellation, who's okay.
Constellation's okay. We'll see where they go from here.
All right, and where we go from here, Gulfstream Park, a little claiming crown action on this show next week as they kick off their championship series. We'll have the Mig. Andy will be down at Gulfstream Park. You'll have me as well, and unfortunately, we have to say goodbye. Always fun here in the studio with the boys. Thank you for tuning into the Racing Report. We'll see you next time on MSG Plus.